一出牌就摸前面 accelerate 我们公车那两次，就给我开到前面自己还有。
Like that's malfunctioning. So the only way for them to get in is to provide with a crowbar. In their heavy protective suits, progress is slow. Once they're inside the silent complex, there are 4 blast doors, and each one of these holds up 3 tons. They're all operated by hydraulics, which of course are not working. Before they can manually open the first 3-ton door, their air supply runs low. Records show that they are out. 17 minutes later, a new team is sent in.
The second team of Sergeant Jeff Kennedy and Senior Airman Peyton Livingston make it past the first 2 blast doors, and before the last one, there is a vapor detector.
They urgently need to know the concentration of hydrazine, because even in protective suits, it can be lethal.
In high concentrations, dimethyl hydrazine will actually
这都远远不用走，
certain hospitals.
不要嘞，真的不要嘞 ，especially 的话，外遮产物，啊，你就是这种
They
disgusting
are ordered
ugliness，
out immediately.
没有人进来了，这个遮
It
挡
is 3
出来。
a.m., 8.5 hours since the leak began. The 2 men are almost clear of the complex. But the missile explodes. What sets it off? So much volatile hydrazine is leaking from the nuclear missile inside the Kazakhstan launch complex that no one can enter safely. They have to try and reduce the concentration of hydrazine.
According to Kennedy, the team chief suggests they turn on the ventilation fans. So Livingston volunteers for Kennedy leaves the site.
Livingston flips on the ventilation system and then stops. Now all they have to do is wait for the hydrazine to vent out of the silent. Livingston reaches the top of the stairs of the access port and is about to head out and join Kennedy when the missile explodes.
The amount of hydrazine in the air just after the ventilation fans are switched on was so abundant that it would not have taken much to burn it.
Turning on the ventilation fans are a good suspect. It ignites hydrazine vapors in the air, which ruptures the fuel and oxidizer tanks, combining hydrazine and nitrogen tetroxide for a much bigger explosion, which blows the roof off.
And at the tip of this fireball is a 9-megaton nuclear warhead.
The fact that there isn't a huge crater in the middle of this suggests that the nuclear device did not explode.
Do the people of Arkansas just catch a very lucky break?
It's actually really difficult to set off a nuclear warhead. You have to have a set of perfectly placed and designed charges, and unless all of them go off perfectly in sync, you won't have a nuclear reaction.
The warhead is discovered 100 feet from the launch complex's entry gate. Battered, but basically intact. We can now explain the chain of events that lead to the disaster. The 2-men team working on the missile, they drop a heavy metal socket that falls between the duct walls and the missile itself. The falling socket ruptures the missile's hydrazine fuel tank. Highly volatile and explosive vapor leaks into the silo. Teams sent in to investigate discover lethal concentrations of hydrazine vapor.
An order comes over the radio to turn on the ventilation fans to vent the hydrazine vapor. It probably causes an electric spark, which ignites the hydrazine vapors inside of the vehicle.
It ruptures the missile's oxidizer tank. Nitrogen tetroxide comes into contact with the leaking hydrazine. It causes a massive hyperbolic explosion. The explosion launches a 9-megaton warhead flying through the air, and it crashes to the earth some distance away, a bit dented but undamaged. The state of Arkansas is spared the specter of nuclear explosion. Although nobody
first we know.
The technicians actually saw this disaster begin when the socket fell off their hand tool. Sometimes, no one sees the disaster coming. The Baltic Sea, September 28th, 1994. The passenger ferry MV Estonia is en route from Estonia's capital, Tallinn, to Stockholm in Sweden. There are 989 people on board.
This is a really high-end luxury ferry. It's designed to take 2,000 people, lots of cars and other vehicles.
By 1 a.m., the Estonia has been at sea for 6 hours and is making good time across the stormy Baltic. But in the middle of the night, far from land, the Estonia sinks. In under an hour, 852 people. Fewer than 100 bodies are ever recovered.
The Estonia is the worst peacetime disaster in Europe since the Titanic. It is understandable that people wanted answers. We all want to find out what actually happened in this disaster.
Now, using photographic evidence, radio transmissions, and survivor testimony, we will digitally dissect the disaster to piece together the tragic sequence of events. What sinks this massive ferry? Is there something wrong with the luxury passenger ferry MV Estonia before she even leaves port that leads to her sinking, with the loss of 852 lives?
Well, it doesn't really seem so. The Estonia is a pretty modern vessel, and according to all of her maintenance records and certifications, she's in good condition.
And construction records confirm that she is specifically designed for the kind of conditions found in the stormy Baltic Sea.
This was a regular work on a scheduled ferry. It was running a little bit late, but only 15 minutes. This is nothing the Estonia hadn't seen before.
According to port records, the ship leaves at 7:15 p.m. from Tallinn, bound for Stockholm.
Nothing about the ship or its departure seems out of the ordinary. Whatever causes this disaster must happen at sea.
One of the things that is difficult is that the main evidence is found in the sea bed.
The wreck of Estonia is located 2 days later.
Estonia being about 266 feet of depth, there are capabilities of having ROVs look for evidence and see what actually happened.
The ROV is a remotely operated vehicle, a robotic submarine controlled from the surface.
Our estimated which we feel is positioned on one of the main lifeboats.
The footage reveals something shocking. The wreck is incomplete.
The entire visor is missing.
Estonia is a row-row ferry, a roll-on, roll-off ferry. These are designed to make vehicle loading as rapid and efficient as possible.
On Estonia, the vehicles enter through the front of the ship. And that means the bow section is lifted up by a series of hydraulic ropes. This bit called the visor then gets out of the way and allows the vehicle to drive in and out.
But this visor is not found on the wreck. It would have been turned off as Estonia sinks.
This visor is a heavy piece of equipment. It's 56 tons. If it had sunk with the vessel, it probably would have been next to it because it's so heavy. Currents wouldn't have been able to carry it away.
But the visor is not found near the ship.
The Estonia Coast Guard actually ends up finding the visor while with the wreckage.
There is only one explanation for this.
It must have started before the ship went down.
The 56-ton visor is connected to the ship by steam hinges at the top and secured in place by hydraulic locks on the base and side. How could this huge assembly just fall off?
Looking at footage, we can see damage to the bottom lock.
The bottom lock secures the visor by pushing a massive bolt into a heavy tube in the hull. And it's big for a reason.
That's where most impact happens because of waves and other forces. It's a very vulnerable spot.
For that reason, both the bolt housing and the tube are welded in place with 2-inch thick steel lugs. The bottom lug, lugs, and bolt housing are recovered from the wreck on the seafloor. All show evidence of major damage.
When we look at the visor, there's evidence that tells us that the lugs holding the locking mechanism in place have actually torn. This is indicative of most likely waves hitting the ship very, very hard.
Meteorological data for September 28th records gale force winds and wave heights of up to 18 feet. But this is the kind of extreme Baltic weather that Estonia is designed for. So why would Estonia's visor break? A metallurgical report on the visor's mechanism is illuminating.
The report showed the metal lugs pulled around it, essentially just weathering the storm. So the waves literally tore the lugs off of the ship.
No longer locked at its base, the Estonia's massive 56-ton visor will collapse under the action of the heavy weather. This fits with survivor statements.
The witnesses say they heard banging noises. What that probably was the visor going up and down, banging against the hull, with the waves crashing into it, causing it to go up and down in that manner.
Magnifying segments of the ROV video supports this theory.
The video footage showed repetitive impact projections. That's further evidence of this visor banging on the waves now.
Every movement of the visor will put extreme fatigue loads on the other attachment parts, the sidewalls, the hydraulics, and the hinges.
And as that happens repeatedly, that strain damages these things further to the point of the visor, which is impossible.
According to survivors, the banging noises started at around 1:15 a.m. This was probably the time when the entire visor moves away from the Estonia.
And this is incredibly serious because they're now sailing a vessel that has a massive hole in the bow. Thousands of tons of oil coming through the opening in the bow can flood the vehicle deck, which is a disastrous for a type of ship.
Why does Estonia's roll-on and roll-off design make the situation so disastrous? Because the MV Estonia is a roll-roll ferry, it is built differently to most other commercial vessels.
The hulls of most ships have vertical walls separating them into compartments. And what that does is that it prevents water from being able to freely move from one area to another in the ship.
But like most roll-roll ferries, the huge vehicle decks behind the visor of the Estonia have no bulkheads.
The reason it doesn't have bulkheads is to allow sailors and trucks to roll into the ferry and roll off when they get to port.
On the Estonia, this open vehicle deck is now being flooded with water through the hole in the bow.
The ship is now unstable because of something called the free surface effect.
Hundreds, maybe thousands of tons of water just sloshing around. Imagine the boat starts listing out towards it, and suddenly those thousands of tons of water are all moving in the same direction. That's what the boats tell even further, encouraging the water to move further and faster. The free surface effect can be so bad that it can tilt the vessel from tight and then over.
This theory of increasing instability fits with the eyewitness statement of passenger Pierre Tiga. He is in the bar at the top of the ship.
Tegan didn't look at the tank banging its start, presumably because the visor is just with the ship. The boat starts to roll and mess up.
Survivor reports suggest the Estonia starts listing 15 degrees to starboard shortly after 1:15 a.m. When it appears, the visor detaches.
The officers on the bridge decide to steer it in such a way as they hope the wind and the waves will push it into an elevated position.
The bridge crew means you've got huge quantities of seawater being blown and thrown into that giant gaping hole that's in the bow of the ship.
It is the ship's last maneuver. According to eyewitnesses, not long after the turn, all 4 engines cut out. The Estonia is adrift.
Losing power at sea is incredibly serious. It means you can no longer steer the ship to protect it from the worst of the wind and the waves.
At 1:22 a.m., the third mate sent out a Mayday call.
The ship is now listing severely to starboard. It's being battered by the wind and the waves. It's only a matter of time before the windows on that side of the ship start breaking, allowing even more water into the body of the vessel.
According to survivors, by 1:35, Estonia is listing at 80 degrees.
There's so much water inside that the buoyancy of the vessel has been fundamentally compromised, and survivors report that at 1:50 or so, the Estonia sank.
Out of the 989 aboard, only 137 survived.
Why do so few people escape? Almost everyone who survives is on the higher decks of the ship. But because it's late at night, many passengers are asleep in their cabins.
Most of the passengers are on deck 6541 and they're completely trapped.
The ship is tilting over increasingly, and water is flooding in through the broken windows.
Once you have a ship that is tilted significantly, you wouldn't really be escaping through the usual route, which is stairwells. You would actually be walking onto walls.
The walls have become the floors have become the walls. There's water rising everywhere, and passengers are trying to make their way up staircases that are now at completely unusable angles.
This is a nightmare.
Being down in those passenger cabins becomes a death sentence.
So when the rescuers arrive, there are very few people to read.
We now have the critical elements to the disaster on the MV Estonia. The sinking can trace its roots back to the ship's construction.
The welding on the locking mechanism for the visor was faulty.
Heavy waves crashing against the visor eventually tear the lugs off the bottom block. Movement of the partially secured visor in the heavy weather snaps the remaining connections. The visor falls off the ship and sinks to the seafloor.
Without the visor, the cold water from the Baltic Sea would have poured in.
You have a big hole in front of the ship and water is rushing through. It's rolling around freely in the vehicle deck.
The free surface effect makes the ship unstable, ultimately listing over to the right. More water floods in as windows and doors are broken by the crashing waves. Passengers asleep on the lower decks are trapped by the rushing water and the increasing angle of the ship. Around 1:50, Estonia sinks below the surface. 852 people are killed. The sinking shocks the world.
This tragedy was on such a profound scale that it fundamentally influenced railroad design and operations around the world. A year after the disaster, several different countries, Estonia, Sweden, Finland, the United Kingdom and Russia, signed the Estonia Agreement in 1995, which makes the site of the wreck a protected gravesite. And that means that approaching or exploring the site is prohibited by all of those signatories.
The tragedy of the MV Estonia begins with a physical defect that has been there since the ship was built. But a simple organizational issue can be just as deadly. The North Sea, 10 miles from the Scottish mainland, sits the 34,000-ton oil platform Piper Alpha. This huge gas and oil rig can produce around 360,000 barrels of oil every day.
Piper Alpha platform has 226 people on it. It's basically like a small town.
At 10 p.m. on July 6, 1988. colossal explosions.
The whole rig becomes a giant inferno. It's completely encased in flames. People are trying to jump off the side of the rig, but there are many people still trapped inside.
Less than 3 hours after the first explosion, most of the rig has collapsed into the North Sea.
The crumpled, smouldering remains of Piper Alpha could be seen at close quarters as the once 34,000-ton rig continues its thick black smoke.
Oh, this is
167 people
Oh,
are
fuck me
killed.
touch 嘞，真的。
30 bodies are never recovered.
At the time, it was the deadliest oil rig disaster ever, and one of the costliest man-made disasters of all time.
Now, using evidence from eyewitness statements and the fragments of surviving data, we will digitally dissect the Piper Alpha disaster to understand what really causes the explosion that kills so many. It takes just under 3 hours for the Piper Alpha disaster to destroy the entire oil rig. A witness statement from the captain of the Lowland Cavalier, a ship close to the rig, states that the first explosion happens around 10 p.m.
The captain reports that the flames have a characteristic blue colour.
That evidence holds the key to what initially ignites.
Piper Alpha was a production rig connected to the sea floor that pumped up a mixture of oil, of methane, and of